Hey guys, this is James.
And this is Denny from TeaDB, bringing you guys episode 212.
Yep. So today we have a little bit of the classic shot. We're going to have to add some cartoon sound effects to that one. This is some paperless cake. It's a old raw cake. We don't know much about it. It came without a wrapper. So I picked up one for myself when I was in Taiwan. It was originally stored in Hong Kong. And I gave a chunk of it to Denny to enjoy. And here we are, bringing it onto the show.
I have enjoyed it. And so I thought let's bring it onto the show. And this is the kind of tea that you can kind of go ham on.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so we're going to do that. Keeping the big chunks together. Boop. And we'll give this a rinse. This adorable little teapot.
And so you can see that I gave Denny a very fancy label that says nothing but his name on it. So I gave him very little info about this tea.
Whatever. You can get a lot of good guessing from the flavor after you've been doing this for long enough. After your tea OGs like James and I. Boom. How hot that is coming out of it a little bit.
TOGs as Denny burns himself.
Yeah. Look at the color already. Crazy. So it's actually pretty clean. We'll still toss this, but
yeah, I like this cake because it's old and it's clean, pretty easy drinking overall.
Good aroma so far. Give that a sniff.
Yeah.
Smells old.
Yep. That sort of like old sweet woodiness to it.
Yep. And we're going to go straight for a flash brew here. So pour and then pour. Can we even do this?
Yeah, you can. That is usually how I do it. So.
Et voila.
This is the easy mode way of brewing.
Easy mode. Boop. And this pot is nice and hot, so I will try to do a higher pour for the...
Yes, indeed. And that's one of the advantages, but also one of the features of these pots is you're just going to end up with a little bit hotter liquid if you use this versus a thin gaiwan, for instance.
Exactly.
So keep in mind, we can see the steam sort of rising up. We had a stretch of really nice weather, but today is a rainy day. So I feel like this tea feels pretty appropriate, actually.
Totally. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice and hot. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Light, texturally. Like, wow. Little hints of fruit going on midway through.
What sorts of fruit would you say? I always struggle to describe these sort of like older or even ripe teas for me. Is it like, I feel like it's like kind of like...
I think it's just that sort of plummy, cherry, sort of sweetness.
Yeah, but it's not like sort of like your rich, ripe ones. It's more like a fermented fruit or something like that.
Yeah. It's not as crisp, but it's still sweet.
A lot of woody tones to this.
Absolutely, yeah. Not quite pencil shaving.
Would you be
flavors,
able to tell this was a raw or a ripe?
Not really, because it tastes aged.
Yeah.
So it could be really old and a raw. It could be younger and a ripe.
So you can sort of, the fermented flavors are sort of at the forefront.
Yeah. We'll do this weekend. And also, just by virtue of this teapot itself, we're going to get a slower brew as opposed to a gaiwan where you can kind of just dump all of the water out immediately. So I'm trying to pour this high. The benefit, I guess, with that too is that it's pouring a little bit more slowly, a little bit cooler. But Really nice color.
Yep.
I'd say from the color alone, I would be guessing ripe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because it's a redder tinge, it's not quite as orange.
Yeah. Well, I have some ripe that has undergone similar storage to sort of this tea, and that tea actually brews up just like, if you were to brew it the same way, it would just brew up black. So It's even darker.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. And another hint, just while we're talking about distinguishing the two, is after you're done brewing, you can take the wet leaf, dump it out, and I feel like that is often indicative. If the leaves are like pitch black, it's probably ripe, or it was stored extremely wet. If it's more of a brownish color or even a dark green, it's probably raw.
There's like that kind of dulling that happens to the raw cake. This has, like, texturally speaking, it's not super syrupy, it's not super thick. It's maintaining its kind of like a little bit light flavors. Really great balance, and I love how the longevity of this tea. I just feel like it's one of those teas that you can take a sip and really, like, I'm still really tasting it. No tannin. It's very balanced, very pleasant, easy to drink.
Extremely smooth, but it still has enough oomph to keep it sort of interesting. Like, it has like good mouthfeel, good viscosity.
Hinting at some leather in there.
I could get that, yeah.
Just barely. And this is one of those teas that I've had a couple times in my house, and I just really enjoyed it because it was overall so well balanced. It's one of those teas that you almost don't notice how good it is because of that. And so when you actually pay attention, like, oh wow, this is kind of almost an inconspicuously, delicious tea. Boom.
Yep. There you go. And we could see that the color is potentially darkening even more.
Yeah.
We're getting a really dark, deep red. Really pretty, actually.
And I have no idea how much leaf I used. I really just did a sort of best guess. And like I said initially, this is the kind of tea that you can mess that up, and
it's forgiving, yeah.
You'll notice if you're, so what are the telltale signs of using too much leaf? It's going to be like pitch black.
Yeah.
And it might not even be bad then.
Yeah, it would just be extremely viscous, extremely thick. Probably not as much sweetness, a little more bitterness in the whole thing, yeah. So,
but you can still drink that if you want.
Yeah, and when I was drinking at this guy's shop, that is exactly how he liked to drink it.
Yeah.
He would have a teapot that's a little bit bigger than this, pour the hot water in, he'd wait.
Yeah.
He'd wait a little bit longer.
God.
It'd be like a minute. He'd pour it out.
And
it happened enough that it was not a mistake.
It was not a mistake.
I know it was
his
not
method.
a mistake, yeah. And the other nice thing is you can really see sort of like those tea oils on top.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of a cool thing to look out for.
Cheers. It's getting rounder and fuller in the front. A little bit, almost molassesy, just a little bit, hint of that. The sort of more, I want to say almost barky herbal sweetness. And it's kind of in that leather category too, a little bit. Really pleasant, and kind of a perfect pairing on a nasty spring day like it is here in Seattle. Damn it. And so, what inspired you to pick up this cake, James?
Well, it was being sold for a pretty cheap price for, I think, its qualities. I think I bought it for about $80 or something. And so, it's just sort of a no frills, easy drinking cake for me. I could drink a tea like this pretty often, especially during kind of less stellar weather days, such as today. But yeah, I think it's quite tasty. It comes without a wrapper. People don't know what production it is, So those things tend to lower the cost. So it's a tea that is pretty much just sold on its own merits as a tea.
Yep.
So no frills, nothing exciting about the marketing, just tea.
That's kind of how it should be in some sense, right? I mean, hypothetically, the best way to be able to judge a tea would be in the same way that my poli-sci professor, Ann Davies, in college did, where she would ask us to write our names on the first page and she would just fold it over. So she doesn't know who wrote the paper, right? You don't know the tea you're drinking. You hopefully can just be drinking it and judging it as it would be. I know Gary Vaynerchuk on Wine Library TV will do brown bag tastings, where he'll just throw a bag over it and wrap it up, and then he'll guess a bunch of stuff about it. And
so to be clear, a brown bag tasting is not where you pretend to be a hobo.
No. Pretty sure that's not the case.
Okay. Clarifying questions, guys.
So the liqueur was getting a little bit cooler, and I wanted to I think this will be our last steeping. So the liqueur so the actual water itself in the kettle has been cooled down a little bit. So I wanted to stress test the tea, and I brewed it for much longer than a flash steeping. The liqueur itself has not gotten much darker, but we'll see how this brews up. This is our fourth.
Fourth.
And so this tea would last us for quite some time as well. So let's give it a shot. Cheers.
I like this brew actually. I get more sort of like mushroominess, probably like pretty nice body still.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think the body is going to become a little more, the texture is a little more viscous, the body's a little bit fuller. Maybe just a hint of spice. Again, it's sort of this bark, leather, spicy sort of vibe going on.
Yeah.
That is a nice little pairing with the sort of older flavors and those sort of fruity flavors going on. I don't want to over exaggerate the fruit though on this. This is not a tangy tropical tasting tea
not at all. This is like all camphorated old fruits. How would you say this tea is relatively clean?
100%.
Okay. So I mean,
I'm getting no funk on it. Although actually in the nose there's a little bit of some basement smell going on in there, but no, I mean in the cup, I'd say if anything it's really clean for who knows how old it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, the liqueur, I mean even just looking at the rinse itself was almost drinkable, or we could have drank the rinse probably.
Yeah, we wouldn't have died at least.
No.
Yeah.
So this is a great find in a random tea shop in Taiwan.
That is correct.
So for you folks out there who, you don't need to be obsessed with the label, you don't need to be obsessed with knowing everything about the tea. It's a really fun part of tea drinking and your cultivation of your own sort of, tea lifestyle.
Wow.
I don't know. God.
Cultivation of your tea lifestyle by Denny Chapin.
But yeah, no, this is a great find. This is not something that you folks can really get, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But maybe you folks in the comments, if you want to let us know some finds that you've had. These are the kind of teas that I feel like the story is half of the tea in some sense. The experience, the shop, the dude that sat there and poured it for a minute and a half, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? And so much of tea is about stuff beyond just the tea, and this is a good example of that as well. But also really delicious. So thank you, James, for the kind gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if folks want to learn more about tea in general, James, what should they do?
Yeah, they should come check us out at TeaDB.org, releasing lots of videos every week, as well as articles. Hit that like button down below. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like all the stuff there. I think that just about wraps it up. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.